Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect to the honorable judge and the audiences, good morning. First, I would like to invite you all to thank the Almighty God who has given us mercy and blessing, so we can stay healthy and always in good condition. Thank you very much for the chance given to me. I am Julia Erlyn Alaysa from Surabaya State University 5, Magetan. Would like to deliver my speech entitled Respect in Rhythm 17th Approach to Empathy and Equality in Education. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever seen someone excluded simply because they're different? Or have you ever felt unheard in class? Well, imagine our learning spaces filled with a spirit of cooperation, empathy, and mutual respect. How wonderful would that education be? Taking inspiration from Seventeen, the famous South Korean boy band, today I would like to invite all of us to look at education from a different perspective. Why Seventeen? Because they're not just a music group, they are a living example of how empathy, collaboration, and mutual respect can create harmony. Not only in the entertainment world, but also in education, whether at school or on campus. These values are essential. Let's start from an academic perspective. Something is known for its strong teamwork. There are 13 different individuals, yet they are all able to work together to create harmony. There's open communication, mutual trust, and a sense of complementarity among them. We can bring this value to the world of education. In modern education, not only academic abilities are important, but also soft skills such as teamwork, respect, listening, and empathy. These skills are just as important as cognitive abilities, even in the workplace. This also aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. SDG 4 emphasizes quality education, while SDG 5 addresses gender equality. The two are inseparable because how can we call education quality if stereotypes, discrimination, and even violence persist in the classroom? However, let's acknowledge the reality. Serious problems persist in many education institutions. Gender inequality and discrimination are common, both subtle and overt. Many students feel overlooked simply because of their appearance, way of thinking, or even their background. Additionally, it's not uncommon to hear about stereotypes, bullying, and even verbal and nonverbal violence on social media and in classrooms. This creates an unhealthy learning environment, fosters fear, and prevents students from reaching their full potential. This situation is complicated by the lack of role models who can teach students how to practice empathy in their daily lives. Often, we only hear words about things like empathy, tolerance, or equality. However, there are rarely concrete examples for the younger generation to emulate. As a result, these values remain only at the level of ideas and are never truly implemented in everyday life. So what can we do? How can we make our education not only thoughtful on paper but also morally rich? First, we must be able to incorporate the principles of cooperation, mutual support, and mutual respect for differences into the learning environment. 17 demonstrates how 13 people can work together without tearing each other down. If we learn to work in groups that support each other in class, the learning environment will be more positive. Second, we can create educational programs that focus on empathy. While empathy doesn't come automatically, it can be trained. Students can develop empathy through collaborative creative activities, small social projects, or group discussions that incorporate diverse perspectives. Learning experience should incorporate empathy, not just textbook theory. Third, training in nonviolent communication and conflict resolution should be provided. Many teenagers don't know how to deal with conflict or express their feelings without hurting others. With this training, students will learn to resolve differences in healthy ways. 17 can once again serve as an example of how conflict can be resolved through open communication rather than through slamming each other. Fourth, we must motivate students to value diversity. 17 demonstrates that differences are strengths, not barriers, and they actively support UNICEF's campaign for equality. In the classroom, differences in culture, background, and perspective should be seen as opportunities to learn from each other, not as reasons to distance ourselves. We create safer, more inclusive, and more respectful learning spaces by encouraging students to value diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, building an education based on empathy and equality is certainly not easy. However, when we see how a music group can implement these values and positively impact society as a whole, we realize that it's not impossible. True education isn't just about score days. Rather, it's about developing individuals who are empathetic, respectful, and prepared to live in this world. If we can implement this on our schools and universities, we will produce a generation that is not only intelligent but also caring, inclusive, and ready to build a better future. This learning environment should be a place that not only sharpens the mind but also softens the heart. As students, we have significant responsibility to make this happen. We are at the forefront of education and contribute to change. We can start with simple things like respecting differences in the classroom, speaking up in a good manner, and being a friend who is ready to help, not tear down. The values of empathy and equality will truly come alive in our daily lives if we can do this. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all about my speech. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.